Hello everyone and welcome to the beautiful daily dress edit. We're in Eccleston Yard in Belgravia, absolutely beautiful in this store surrounded by gorgeous dresses, courtesy of Isabel Spearman, who I'm sure you all know as the founder of the Daily Dress Edit. Also Stella, columnist, who introduces us to the big dresses of the moment every month. What would we do without her? And I'm really excited today. I'm Bethan Holt from Stella, and we're here to meet some of the women behind the dresses that we all have fallen in love with, and learn more of the stories about how these women and all the businesses like them that we're surrounded by in this beautiful shop are pioneering a new, slower, kinder way of shopping and experiencing fashion. So I hope we're going to have a very interesting conversation tonight, and excited for you to join us. So I'm going to introduce everyone and then we'll kick off. So first of all, we've got Sasha Newell from My Wardrobe HQ, which is a rental platform. You can rent loads of gorgeous dresses. We've got Freya from Freya Simon. I've got Justine from Justine Tabak. Laura Von Bear from Laura Von Bear. And of course, last but by no means least, Isabel herself. So yes, we're going to kick off with, I think the question that really vexes me about this whole thing, I mean, obviously we all know that there are so many lovely dresses in here tonight, but it's so easy for everyone to just go into a high street store, go onto a high street website, click of a button, buy a dress. What do you all love about doing it in this slower way? Isabel, let's start with you, as you have kind of spearheaded this whole thing.
I think it's changed. I mean, I did my first one 3 years ago when people wanted to walk away with a dress and they were purchasing it for a moment. And I think post-lockdown and post a real re-education in slow fashion, they're so happy to wait. So, you know, if you say it'll be made for you and it'll be with you in 3 weeks, great. And that is a very new language, and I think the women that are coming in here are prepared before they come in here. And I think it's a combination of following Daily Dress Edit, reading literature about it, following a lot of the women in here and the brands, that is a very different mental headspace of shopping than they would have previously been in.
I think that's quite interesting when it's a little bit like the old adage, the best things are worth waiting for. And I think that what I found, and I came from a high street, or sort of a mid-high street background, is that people are really searching for a connection with clothes. And I think that with that, it's a bit like food. You sort of grow food and you nurture food and you feed yourself lovely taste. And it's the same with clothing. I think there's just this real feeling of, wanting to know what the story is behind the clothing, wanting to know, you know, who made the dress, how it feels, and there's that real connection that you can get with a customer with slow fashion, which is really valuable.
Definitely. It's not just that kind of one-hit wonder, is it? It's kind of loving it over and over. And Laura, you must get that all the time because you're specialised in vintage dresses.
Of course. So with vintage, I think people are so kind of romantic about where it's come from, and everyone always says, "Oh, where did this one come from?" And obviously, I'd love to know the complete origin of the dress, but often it's been handed down generations, or sometimes I found it in an interesting place. But I think people are definitely really keen to get to know the makers, like all these beautiful dresses and designers. People are so invested into the story behind the brand and how they came to be, and also having something really different and unique rather than a dress from Zara that everyone's going to have.
I have to say, I'm really interested to know how you find all your dresses, because I see these racks that you have in your studio and it just looks amazing. How do you find them all?
Well, it's since kind of getting to know my customer, it's taken a few years for me to really kind of establish who my customer is and what they're looking for. So knowing that now makes it much easier when I kind of go sourcing, whether it's kind of market or auction or kind of to someone's house, maybe I'm going to do a home visit. I have a really clear mind of not necessarily what will sell, but what my customers will love to try and be excited about. So that's made it a lot easier.
And how about Sasha? What do you think? I mean, coming from a kind of rental perspective, do you give your customers that thing that they might get might originally have got from going into a high street store, or is it a bit of a different behaviour?
We try, we give perhaps the quicker gratification, but it is interesting that we've introduced a calendar booking service and people are booking 3-4 months ahead, which I guess is a similar thing where they're willing to wait and have exactly the right thing. So yeah, that shows this slowness is beginning to sort of seep into people's psyche around fashion, which is really great. We do obviously also offer a next day delivery service as well, for particularly if somebody's got caught short. But what people seem to really love is the history behind the dress. So I think we kind of almost fast track the vintage elements, where we've got one example is a Gucci suit that's been worn at pretty much every fashion awards, film awards, openings of various different restaurants, and the history that goes alongside that suit now is fascinating. And because it's a rental piece and it's, it has velocity, it's created that history has been created within a 12-month period.
Amazing. And Freya, I know that you have a completely different sort of approach to someone who might be going into a fast fashion store. Tell me about that and why you've fallen in love with this slower way of working.
I think for me it all started from a place of wanting to reduce waste in every way that I could, and so whilst kind of protecting the planet and treating everyone involved in the best way. And I think I've come from a fast fashion background, and it was something which, whilst a lot of things were improving, there's some things that you really couldn't ignore. And so for me, I've also always shopped vintage. I love kind of that thrill of finding something really special, and so it kind of all accumulated in me then only using sort of secondhand and vintage fabrics. It sort of kind of naturally progressed that way. So everything I use is already in existence, even down to trim, zips. I source it all secondhand, and within that I'm really careful about the waste that I produce within the process. So I try and kind of adhere to a zero waste sort of ideal, where when I'm cutting everything out, any things that are left over I either upcycle into accessories, or the smaller bits I'm experimenting at the moment to try and use them as padding. That's a work in progress in some of my jackets. And then in other pieces, when I started I was like really kind of strict, and everything I made was zero waste pattern cut, which for anyone that doesn't know, basically it means the pattern pieces fit together perfectly when you cut out the piece, so no waste is created. But obviously it's quite difficult, so when you design the shape you're thinking of the pattern pieces, so that it's quite a complicated approach in some aspects. Some of my pieces are still zero waste pattern cut, some of my dresses and the Simone puffer, which is great because that's a really popular piece. But I've kind of expanded from there, and also, ultimately we want these things to be beautiful. We don't want to compromise on anything, and if we're going to compete against, maybe less environmentally friendly options, I think it's worthwhile. We can't be perfect in every kind of tick box. So I then kind of explored pattern cutting just normally alongside that, and then, like I say, use the waste as best I can.
I think it's interesting as well, I mean, apart from the sustainability angle, which I think we all share, and nothing is entirely sustainable, we're all doing our best for the planet. But I think also what's interesting is that I feel that women have had a bit of fatigue over the last decade or so about being told what they should be wearing, the fleeting trends, and it's almost like there's a sense of individuality. And obviously Freya sitting there, I mean, it's just a beautiful individual dress, and you can really connect with customers that way, and I think that they like being treated as special. And
when they come in here they don't say what's in fashion. I mean, the word fashion isn't really used. It's
exactly.
Like what will suit me, what am I going to get the most wear out of, and they come back and say the ones I bought last year I wore them all winter, and the 1 or 2 dresses, and that's what they love doing. They're really proud of buying something that's going to get them through a whole season that they really love, and they want to add to that, but kind of slowly, without buying a whole haul that they're not going to wear very often.
And that's a real sense of achievement, because in a sense those are the sort of the vintage pieces that people will find in the next 20, 30 years because they've been cherished and loved. So
yeah, the story kind of continues, the story of the dress continues.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, sustainable style always had this reputation of being a bit sort of muesli, a bit hemp sack. I mean, I think we can see from how beautifully dressed everyone here is tonight that that's not the case. But, you know, how are you all determined to defy that stereotype, and what do you do apart from dressing beautifully to kind of do that, Sasha?
I think range is important within that you really do have something for everybody. So we try to have a range of sizing, so everything going from a size 4 through to a size 24. And that's been the size sort of 16 plus has become really important and actually a really key part of the business. And we're constantly trying to expand that range. So yeah, that's probably one of the ways of, you know, giving people real choice so that you're not pigeonholed into sort of, you know, yeah, what did you say, hemp and
Hemp and muesli.
And muesli, yeah.
It's not much
Although I do like muesli, I have to say. I really like muesli.
If you look at the wine water, there's not much hemp and muesli about that pink ball gown behind.
No. I mean, I'm so obsessed with that pink ball gown. I wish, yeah. Maybe when I have a waist back.
I thought the analogy, I mean, it made me giggle. And I think that's quite interesting because in the food industry, you know, the whole health food phenomenon that's, you know, originally the whole veganism was all about, a bit weird and it's just a few bean sprouts or something. But actually, of course, now there's, you know, a plethora of restaurants, and, you know, amazing food. And I suppose maybe just fashion's just been a little bit behind that. And, you know, you only have to look around this room and, you know, I think stands for itself.
Yeah, and obviously you used to work in a high street environment, as you've just said. What have you loved about embracing this slower approach? And
well, it is a little bit like savouring food. I mean, you know, you consider everything that you do. I think the things that I really love, and it's something when I left that sort of arena in the high street, it was about forming relationships. I was determined to work locally, determined to sort of put back into the local economy in the UK. And in doing so, I hadn't actually realised that, you know, all the emailing and all the texting, what was so valuable and is just lovely is to go and meet the makers every week. We have an open door policy at the factory. It's not really a factory, it's sort of more of a workshop. It's the connections that you make with customers. You know, they really feed into the clothes. They tell you the sorts of things that they like. They talk about how something feels. A bit like Isabel was saying, I mean, you've had it here doing, you know, in-store shopping. You know, it's just revisiting that art.
And they're now coming in and saying which ones are made in the UK. You know, now that's the first time I've been asked that. So, you know, this is where Justine purely manufactures in the UK, but I think that's quite unusual. And I think more pioneers what Bethan's wearing, I mean, Dune, I think it's a growing business and people really feel whether it's a post-lockdown thing or something that was coming, that they want to champion British manufacturing and things that are made here.
And it feels like people want to invest in that again, you know, they'd rather
spend a little bit more.
Yeah, maybe buy 2 dresses a year rather than 10 and know that it's kind of beautifully made here, and they understand that, yes, you have to pay a bit more money to get something that is made in the UK. You know, you can't expect to buy something for a £5 that's been...
But it's hard. We don't have the manufacturing that we used to.
I know.
I'm being perfectly honest. We don't have huge factories, you know, just finding, you know, seamstresses and, you know, I've got a bit of a thing about, you know, we don't do needlework. I know it's showing my age, but, you know, nobody learns how to sew anymore. And I think when your dresses were all made, everybody was sewing themselves. You probably have quite a few.
Yeah, and so many handmade. People can't kind of, you know, have to encourage people, you know, it's okay, you can take the hem up if it's a bit long. And I think people are still getting their heads around, you know, oh, can I do that small alteration? You know, is that, but, you know, it's kind of, everyone would have done that before and everyone would have made things. And when I show people the seam allowance in a dress has been handmade, you know, to be able to put a big seam allowance in a high street dress would never happen. So, you know, I say, look, it's been made so that it can be taken in and out as you grow, as you shrink, you know, you can kind of take it up or down.
But it all adds so much value.
It does.
It is an education, I think. It's just like the food industry where people, you know, just eating fast food, and now they can see the value of growing their own. And I'm sure in the future that will happen, from, you know, particularly from brands like Freya. No, it's
Well, I think also the food industry gives real hope for us that it has happened, and exactly like you said, it's so interesting to see that transition from vegan and veggie for boring like broccoli, like why would I choose that for my dinner, to, you know, now you choose to go to a vegan restaurant full stop because it's amazing. And I think that's so hopeful for us, you know, for the fashion industry now following in that kind of wake. And I think we have to hold on to the hopefulness, because sometimes it's not always there.
And that education piece is a really key part of why we started the rental business. So I'd come from a sort of contemporary level fashion background, and it was heartbreaking to see these designers, you know, really put heart and soul into everything and put everything on the line every time they put a collection out. You know, and within 2 weeks, fast fashion will have copied the key looks and be selling it for 30 quid, which they can barely compete with. And the nice thing about rental is we can start to educate people that as much as fast fashion brands can make every photo look incredible with the airbrushing and the models and everything that they use to create the magic, when you receive that dress, it will be polyester and it won't fit properly, and you'll get really big sweat marks when you wear it. And whereas if you rent the designer original from the designer, you can begin to really experience the difference, and the corseting and the quilting that you've got in this dress, and just the way it feels on you. It's a completely different experience that is very difficult actually to get across simply in a photograph. So through rental, it's essentially a try before you buy. You can try something. If you love it and you realise it fits into your life and you can wear it forever, you can then also buy it. And that idea of educating people, and then also allowing people to choose the designers that they want to support. So you can genuinely become a patron for a very little amount of money. You know, rentals start from sort of £7 to £9 a day. But if you love vintage and you want to support Laura and what she's doing, then you can start renting from her regularly, and you become a patron of her business in a small way, but obviously it's very meaningful to her. So yeah, that they were the sort of, alongside the sustainability, the making things available at a price that people could afford so they could try them, and then the supporting the designers with kind of the two other cruxes of the business that we set out to create.
And I think loads of people are really interested in renting now, but they think that, oh, I can only rent something if I've got, you know, a huge party or a big black tie occasion coming up. How do you recommend people kind of integrate it into their more everyday lives? They don't need to. Do they need to have a big occasion to?
No, not at all. I mean, we do, to be absolutely honest, because with rental, that's their first thought. A lot of people are coming for sort of a statement dress, but it may not be a big black tie event. It might be a birthday dinner or a trip to the pub with a friend that they haven't seen for a long time. It doesn't have to be very grand, but we do have this rent and buy element on everything that we offer. So, and we've got some really niche brands that have, you know, incredibly beautiful tailored black trousers that would absolutely sort of stack up to a Celine quality, but you need to get them into your hands to try them. And then, you know, the buy price on the rent price on those may be £35 for a week, and the buy price is probably around 180. And we give people the opportunity to try those, and then if they decide that's the kind of piece that works into my wardrobe and I will wear, you know, for the next 20 years, then absolutely buy it. The opportunity is still there.
You've given them that personal service,
Yeah.
which is so valuable.
But what we want to discourage is the throwaway. You know, I'm going to buy it, never wear it, then throw it away. I mean, that's a real shame. So that's why rental gives you the option to try to think it through first. Yeah.
And Laura, just to go back to the whole my terrible muesli thing, because I think vintage is one of those things that people can sometimes think, oh, is it, you know, walking into a musty charity shop, you know. How are you defying that stereotype? Well, I know, but bring that to life for any of our, you know, viewers.
Like, I do kind of a similar, I do a by appointment like it is at the pop-up, which has worked really well for me actually. Lots of people kind of say, oh, why don't you sell online? And for me personally, I love having my customers come to the studio, come and relax, have a glass of wine, we have a chat, and then they can touch everything, feel everything, go through everything as many times as they want, and just have a proper try on. And I think through that process, you really think about, you know, we sort of say, are you going to wear this? And I can see if someone comes out and they sort of go, you know, you think you're not comfortable in that, take it off, try something else, because you're never going to be comfortable on the streets if you're not comfortable here. You know, you need to feel like you're going to wear something.
Yes, it's a proper luxury service is what you provide, is that you get to really...
But I do think there are so many amazing sellers now You know, whether you like a sort of a minimal look or, you know, a certain sort of jumper. There's now so many sellers through Instagram, or the shops are so much more of a curation, I think. You know, we're sort of catching up with other cities. So I think people are just kind of up for trying vintage, whereas before they might think, you know, it's only for, it's muesli or whatever.
And Isabel, you are literally one of the most glamorous people in the fashion industry, and you know, you have a background in luxury fashion. So, I mean, how can you tell us just a little bit about your journey to coming to this, and did you think that you could create such a kind of beautiful setting for fashion done in this kind of slower kind of way?
I mean, it's happened completely organically. It's another buzzword, but I think it's kind of, because it's happened organically, it's grown really beautifully and very slowly. I mean, I started the Instagram account on a whim because I wanted to force myself to look at Instagram as a brand consultant, and then started discovering these brands that I never would have found out about in any other way. When I was approached by Grosvenor London 3 years ago to do the first pop-up, they were like, well, can you find 5 brands to come and showcase in Belgravia? And I was like, well, I think I can do better than 5 brands. I'm calling Justine and going, hello, my name is Isabel. And she's like, oh, yes, I'll do it.
I was in the loft at the time, classic startup, rifling through vintage probably.
It took all of us by surprise. But that first one, they were still in a rush to buy and purchase, and they wanted it then and straight away. And it has surprised me how we've managed to create these really beautiful spaces, which is very much because of Grosvenor and Belgravia being behind us, but to showcase these really beautiful dresses, and people returning back each year, and also kind of through the Instagram account wanting to look beautiful and glamorous, but also wanting to champion something that might have taken a month to make. Or I mean, Freya was in here the other day, it took her a day, it takes her a full day to make one dress, and I think that makes you appreciate as a buyer the time and the effort to go into it. And we've had, you know, some women in here that I never would have thought would have bought a dress from someone, because they are beautiful dresses, but they are, you know, it's a real dress moment, and they've just come in and fallen. Yeah, but it's the emotion behind it. They've fallen completely in love with that dress, or they've fallen completely in love with the vintage dress, or one of Justine's dresses, and I think that kind of passion has just happened organically throughout the last 3 years, and people now come and expect it, and they get to touch and feel so many brands that they wouldn't normally have an opportunity to.
It really is that emotional connection, which is a sort of well-tuned phrase now, but I think, you know, coming somewhere like here, it's quite an experience, it's an event.
And we curate it so they're coming to see everything at once. And there's also no distractions, so no shoes. Everyone keeps saying, when you do bags, no. Shoes, no. Jewellery, no. Makeup, no. Just dresses. So I'm very grateful to be given the opportunity to showcase it, but I think it's a lovely project, and I love working with all these small businesses. It's much more exciting.
And I mean, I'm not sure this will go out and there, but you know, I think I'd like to take that opportunity while we're here, is that certainly when we had that conversation and I was in the loft, you know, to be asked to be part of something like this was incredible. And I remember knocking on the doors of press, you know, being a professional pest, not with you, Bethan. And you know, if you said you're a small brand and you didn't have stock behind the brand, or if you didn't have an advertising budget, you wouldn't get a look in. And honestly, Isabel, it's been amazing for all these, for so many brands. And you know, coming here a few weeks, you know, last week to the party, you know, we're all in awe and great gratitude to everything.
It doesn't have to go out.
No, but I mean, you don't really get the.
It's the connection of everyone, you know.
You don't get the opportunity to say thank you, and you know.
You formed a wonderful network.
And it's a community.
It is a community, and we all know each other sort of on Instagram, but we've never met, and now we've met.
I know, we might have a DD community WhatsApp group.
Yeah.
But it's just opened up a whole kind of, a network for everyone, which is really lovely.
It's friendly fashion.
I love the term hashtag. Yeah. Friendly fashion is lovely, because fashion does have a bit of a reputation for being all these kind of ice queens, doesn't it? And this is anything but, you know.
The word, I mean, no one has used the word fashion here, which is so nice. I mean, I know slow fashion is a theme, but I think they just want to wear beautiful garments, and that's what it is.
Yeah. So we had quite a few questions, and I know you know, working at Stella, we get questions from readers. So I'm kind of going to lump them all together because like there's a lot of common themes. So I think people have kind of worries about entering this world sometimes. They worry that they're, you know, there's not going to be a size for them if they're a plus size or a particularly petite size or, you know, not a kind of mainstream size, or they worry that it's going to be way too expensive and out of budget. So I don't know, between you, can you allay some of those worries or fears or give some tips around how people might be able to kind of get a slice of this if they're feeling a bit...
And I've had a lot of people messaging me before they've come in or made an appointment and said, one, can you tell me your price point where you start? And two, do you have these sizes available? And it's definitely something that is part of a journey of slow fashion. I'd love to be offered more. I had a friend that came up with size 4 today. We couldn't find anything. I'd love to be able to find larger sizes, and I think it's me working with the brands and in creating that size range. But I think on the financial thing, it's kind of, if you wrote down everything you spent in a season, you know, actually, even if it's all high street, could you then put that price into one beautifully made product or 2 beautifully made products? And I think it's then a conscious decision to shop like that and to change the way of shopping.
Definitely. I think that's very good advice.
We had some really interesting feedback sort of aligned with that during lockdown from our customer services department, who were saying they were getting lots of calls from people saying, you know, I haven't shopped now for 6 months, I've actually saved quite a lot of money, and now I want to buy something a bit more meaningful that I know that I can keep and actually also will retain value. That was an element of it and something that I can pass on. And yeah, so that there is a mindset shift, but I think it's, you know, if you're typically shopping every weekend, it's quite tempting to buy, and the magic is just don't go. Wait, just go a couple of times a year and come and see Isabel or come and see us at Harrods.
And I think it is that, you know, it's that considered purchase. If you're buying something that's more expensive than what you're used to, does it have resale or rental value as well? And that's something that I think now is like, if I buy this dress and it's X amount of money, I will wear it so many times, but can I then, circular fashion, you know, it's incredibly important. Can I put it up to rent and get some money back for it? Potentially. Can I resell it and will it retain some of its value? Potentially. And I think if I get a tick on those questions, then that dress has a place in my wardrobe. But if it doesn't, then it doesn't come to my wardrobe. Yeah. And I think that's a question that I think people in here ask themselves, and I think it's something that should be encouraged. Is yes, it might be more money, but you can, you know, they're investments. You know, you can get some money back by putting it through rentals or reselling it. And it's part of this kind of whole circular fashion, whether it's vintage or buying something from you, that it can keep going round and around.
So my final question, I feel like you've all said so many wise things, but, you know, just thinking kind of 5 years' time, in the next, I don't know, what would it be, like the 10th, 15th Daily Dress Edit pop-up?
I'll be dead by then.
How do we hope that fashion and shopping will have changed? And
I think so much has changed in the 3 years. It's just making me think about that first year we did it, and people was pretty fast and furious then. And is it lockdown? Probably. You know, is it post-pandemic? I think it's definitely, it has definitely helped everyone slow down and think about it. So if that much has changed in 3 years, it's very exciting to think what might change in another 3 years. And I think hopefully it won't be a minority. Embracing slow fashion won't be a bit measly. It will be something that feels quite normal and to all different generations. And that is not just the younger generation, but also the kind of older generation who still think there's a bit of a fashion thing. So I hope it becomes more of a normal shopping habit.
Totally. Well, we'll see you all in 5 years.
With a lot more lines and grey hair.
Oh, thank you so much, everyone. It was, so interesting and lovely to chat to you all. And I hope that everyone at home enjoyed it.